Hello there, and thank you for joining me today for Floral Wednesday. Today we are continuing our exploration with the Frog Collage papers, and we'll be creating some flowers, collage flowers. I'll show you how to assemble these, and then we will use our fodder from earlier in the week from the mandala, from the sampler Sunday, as well as what we made today to create a beautiful floral collage with this palette. Let's get started. All right, so I have all of my floral papers printed. And what I'm going to do is first I want to separate these sheets. And I'm going to use my paper trimmer. And if you don't have a paper trimmer, you can use a large pair of scissors for that part. And so here I have the large vases and the small vases. And we'll start with the flowers here. For these, I like to separate each of these rows. So just cutting along and separating them. Okay, so with the flowers, I, just like all the other shapes for the mandalas and for the animals, we're going to cut along the outside of the shape, and we're going to try to keep that background intact. So I managed to keep this all in one piece. And what I like to do with these pieces is to either use them as collage fodder. So I could grab them and put them onto a collage. The other thing, like we did on Mandala Monday, is I could piece them all back together and put them on a sheet of white paper and then go back and add some doodles to these. And I will show you the one that we did last week. So here's the one that I did for the mandala last week. I keep it in a binder with all of my master sheets. In this, I added doodles within the Teal Tango color palette. So for the Mandala Monday for this week with the Frog collection, I'll go back and add the yellows, oranges, and greens to this. And then for the flowers, I haven't decided yet. I'll either glue them down or I'll just keep them loose and use them as collage fodder. Now within the flower design, I didn't mention this yet, but there's 3 sizes of petals. So you'll have 3 different sizes of flowers, and then with each collage paper, and then these are the circles for the flowers, and I'll show you how to use those. We only need 3, a large, medium, and small for the large, medium, and small flower, but I included extras, and these are nice also, just little circles are nice to add to the collages. So to assemble the flowers, we need 4 small, 4 medium, and 4 large. I'm going to go ahead and cut these out. So we'll need these, and right now I'll be assembling, this is a large one, I'll be assembling a large flower. So I'll need 1 large circle. With the black lines on the collage paper, we cut on the outside. For these circles, we want the white circle to be a little bit smaller than the collage one, so we're going to cut on the inside of the black line for these. So large circle, large flower. And then the last thing that I need for the flower is a circle, but I want it in a different color than that. And I'm flipping through here. I'm going to go ahead and choose one of these. And I'm going to cut the circle here on the outside. So these are all the pieces that we need to assemble one flower: white circle, the 5 petals, and then the collage circle. I'm going to need my Mod Podge. So we'll uncap that. And for the petals, what I like to do is to dip them. So just dip the tip, get a little bit of glue on there, and then stick it to the white circle. And then work my way around the circle, petal by petal. And they don't have to be absolutely perfectly spaced. It's actually nice to have some variation there. And there's the last one. And the last step is to put a little bit of Mod Podge in the center. And there we are. I'm going to go ahead and do one more. So I'm going to cut. This is the smallest flower here. So we have small, medium, and large. So this is a small. So small flower, small circle on the inside of the black line. And then I need a small center to go with this flower. So maybe this one here. This on the outside. So the only one that we're doing on the inside is the white. So let's do the same thing. Dip each piece one by one. Dip, press, and then keep on going around the circle. Okay, and then the last step, a little Mod Podge in the center, and then we'll stick that on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all of these out off camera. I'll assemble them, and then I'll come back with the entire collection. But before I do that, I'm going to show you the vases, and these are easy. Let's just cut them out from the collage paper on the outside of the black line, and that's it. Okay, so we'll have this scrap here that we can use for fodder. Actually, that looks cool, even gluing it down to something like that with the circles in the back. So there's all sorts of things we can do with that. So I'll be back with both the small and large vases and then all of the flowers assembled. Okay, so I'm back with all of my flowers. They've been cut and assembled. I have all the vases cut. These are the excess, the scraps from the vases, which I can use. I'm going to put these aside in a bin. I have this piece that I love using in collages. This is from the white circles. So I'm going to put that aside as well. These are all the extra circles from the flowers. Like I said, we only needed 3 of each, so we have 3 of each left. I'm going to scoop those up with this and put them aside as fodder. There's one more. The other thing I have is the scraps from the flower petals in circles. So I have all these, and I can glue them all down like we did for Mandala Monday. So I glued them down, and since Monday, I actually went ahead and doodled this. So these are all the scraps from the mandala shapes glued down to a white piece of paper and then doodles added. I'm keeping this as my master, and I made a photocopy so I can use that as fodder today. The other thing I brought from Monday is the mandala, which I'm keeping my original. So that'll go over there. And then I made a copy just in case I want to grab anything from here for my collage today. I'll put that aside. And we have the sampler page. So we'll take a look at this when we're deciding on the backgrounds. So let me just take a step back. For all of this, what I'm going to do is set these aside in a bin. I may glue some of them down to a white sheet, but I have the mandala scrap canvas that I can use. So I'm going to put these in here. So maybe I'll glue some of these down to the collage. So we'll move that aside. And then I'm going to grab the Frog color wheel. And again, we have the color palette is orange, yellow, yellow, green, and green. So we can see all those colors here. What I'm going to do now is get a sense of what background colors or papers that I want for my collage. And because I picked these for the flowers, these for the vases, I'm probably going to choose something in here. And I think I'm going to go for this lighter palette. And I did go ahead and print out one of those sheets, the half sheets for that, which is this. And I also printed out this sheet that has strips of the same, these 8 here. So I'm thinking of using these 2 sheets for the background. I did print one of these dark ones, which is this. So it has these 2 on it. And because what I was thinking is, even though it's dark, if I use like this green on there, so I wouldn't want to use this on the collage, but if I use the green or the yellow, even this would go okay with that, but I think the green or the yellow for that. So let's see. I'm going to play around and see what I come up with. For the flowers, I'm going to move those all aside. I'll put those in a bin. So I have that here. And the next thing I need to do is choose my substrate for today. So that's what the surface that I'm going to be collaging onto. And I'll grab that now. And I'm going to be using a piece of chipboard again. I think I've been using the chipboard for a lot of my collages. I've also done some on the stretch canvas, but we'll work on this today. So what I'm going to do first is cut these in half, this one and this one. And I'm going to grab my paper trimmer. Okay, so what I was thinking is maybe this for the bottom and one of these for the top. So either this or this. The alternative I was thinking is to do these 2 here. So either like that or like that. I'll probably do the glazing or the whitewashing, which is doing that thin layer of white paint to lighten it up a little bit. But let's just see. Let me see if I can make a decision here. for which papers. I don't think I'm going to be using this one. Okay. So I think I'm going to go for this and then maybe do a green. I could do 2 greens, yellow and green. I could do 1 vase. Maybe I'll do 1 vase today. So I'm going to go with this. So for this one, I'm going to trim this just a little bit. I'm going to grab my large scissors. And I'm going to move all of these away as well. Put those in a bin. The other thing that I have is my scraps from Sampler Sunday. So I have some interesting shapes in here, some ripped papers. And then I also have my shapes from Mandala Monday. So I could use those as well. So I have a whole selection of collage fodder ready in the frog palette. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put some Mod Podge on the back of this. And what I want to do is to get enough on there so that it soaks into the fibers of this paper. See, it's already starting to curl, which is what I want. And I find that putting it on the paper, allowing the Mod Podge to soak in there, I'm going to less likely have wrinkles and bubbles in my paper when it dries. So you can see that's really curling up. So I'm going to lay this down. There's also enough on there so that it slides so I can get it to where I want it. And I'm going to press that down. And then I have a gift card here that I'm just pressing it into my substrate. So for substrates, you can use cardstock, you can use chipboard. I've even done it on a piece of regular paper. I've done that before. It does, you know, tend to bend. It's not as sturdy, but it's certainly something that can be done. A canvas panel or stretch canvas. But again, this is the chipboard, and I like to buy sheets of it. I don't know if it comes in, I think it comes in like 9 by 11 or something like that. Okay, so I'm gonna put this one up top. I can trim a little bit off of this. And do the same thing. Coat it with Mod Podge. Really getting that into the fibers. Okay, again, it's nice and curled. And then I'm going to lay this down where I want it. And then use my card to flatten it. Okay. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and trim the edges. Still wet, but that's okay. Just get as close as I can to the edge. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to let it completely dry. You can see that it's starting to bend here. But let's let it dry and then I'll come back and we'll check it out. All right, so I'm back and now it's still bent. And that is okay. Now I'm going to have to go back to a previous video because I know when I came back it was flattened out, and unless I look at it again, and you might know the answer to this, but I might have coated the other side with Mod Podge as well. But I'll take a look at that. What I've decided to do now is I want this strip right here, and I'm going to add that to the collage. So I'm going to cut that. Now I've decided that I do want this smaller, so it would have been easier to cut it smaller when it was attached to the large sheet, but I think I'm going to go with something like this. Okay. So move this aside. And I want to grab a large brush. So I have this here because I'm going to glue this down. So I wanted just a little bit more color in the back. And then I want to coat the entire surface. So for the small pieces, I like to use a scrap of chipboard. I find that as much as I can keep my workspace clean, that's better. So we'll put this down. I'm going to trim that. And now I'm going to go ahead and coat the entire surface because I think the next step for me is going to be adding a thin layer of white paint and then maybe some stamping. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry and then I'll be back. I'm going to, in the meantime, wrap my large brush and put the cover on this container so that the Mod Podge doesn't dry. All right, so I'm back and this is completely dry and it's still bent. I did go back and look at the video. It's actually it's Animal Friday Bundle 1, Week 1. And I guess I just got lucky because when I came back, it was completely flat. But it doesn't really matter. I can simply flatten it out just by doing this. So I thought there was some secret as to a secret technique for having it come flat, but it just happened that one time. So there we are. That settles that. And I'll probably have to do it again, maybe bending it this way a little bit. So let's move on. What I want to do is coat the surface with a thin layer of paint, of white paint. So I have this, which is just the top to a deli container. This is an opaque white paint, acrylic paint. And this is titanium white, which is a good opaque white. So I'm going to go ahead and squeeze some of this out. I have a jar of water. I have my paintbrush here. So we'll do the coating with a transparent layer of white. And then I also grabbed the bubble wrap and 2 tops to some containers. So these are 2 different size circles. So we can stamp with that. So let's move this out of the way. I have some water on my brush. And what I want to do is just water down this paint. So you'll just have to play with it. And I'm going to try this now. So I'm just going to coat the entire surface. So there's Mod Podge on the surface. If there was not Mod Podge on there, this would just soak right into the paper and there would be no way of getting it off of there. So definitely make sure you don't miss that step. I'm going to go ahead and do the whole thing. And I'm just adding more water because I want to keep it wet because I'm going to put a paper towel across it too. This might take a couple tries to get what I'm looking for. Okay. So I'm going to grab my paper towel. And paper towels are nice because they come in all sorts of texture depending on the brand. So I'm going to pat the lower part like this. See how much pulls off. So a fair amount. I might put a little bit more up here and do that again, just a little bit lighter. So that gave that a nice texture. For the upper part, I'm going to scrunch this up. And I'm just tapping on there. So I'm pulling it off in a different way, which gives a little bit of a different texture. Okay. And the other thing I could do is if I want to use that paper towel and go from here to here, I could try to add some texture back that way. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is wipe up the water from here, because now I just want thicker paint. I want it opaque now. That's why I start with opaque, because for the stamping with the bubble wrap and the tops here, I want it opaque. Otherwise, I could have chosen a transparent white if I wanted to just do the background, but I'm using it for both purposes. So here I want a little bit of water just because this is such a thick paint, but I don't want it watery like we just had it. So I might have added just too much water there. So I'm going to add a little bit more paint. Okay. And I can either try to dip these in like that. That works. Or I could brush it. So just adding circles around. Just trying to create some interest in the background. And I'm going to use this larger one as well. Doing a whole bunch of them. You could do a couple, a lot, and then I'm going to paint some white on the bubble wrap and add some texture that way as well. Okay. If there's any places that I want to make more obvious, I could get some water on this paper towel. I'll just use this water here. And I should be able to. So for example, this green strip, if the paint is still wet, I could go across and try to brighten that up again. Like that. Okay, so let's let that dry and then I'll be back. I'm gonna, in the meantime, clean up my workspace here. All right, I'm back. This is completely dry. So now let's start moving some collage fodder around and come up with a beautiful design. So I decided on this vase. I have my flowers here. So I'm going to lay some out. I'm going to decide whether I want to do a lot of flowers, which I kind of like that, or if I want to do just a couple, which sometimes I like to do as well. So just a little bit. So let me play around with this and make a decision. Okay, so I think I'm going for something like this with a bunch of them down. Let me see what else we have to add. So again, I'm going to look at what I have here in terms of all this fodder and play around for a bit and just come up with some ideas. I also may want to use some stuff from here, so I might cut some of that out. Okay, so at this point, I think I'm going to glue some of my pieces down. I'm going to move the flowers in the vases because those will go on top. And I know I want to do these two pieces here, this here. So I'm going to grab my Mod Podge. And then I have my scrap piece of chipboard. This is paint, not Mod Podge, so I want to wash that off because I don't want to get that everywhere. Grab another one here. And then I'm going to glue this down. So coating the back, wanting that paper to curl up like that, and then sliding it to where I want it. So I'm thinking that. Trying to decide if I want that to go across there or this way. I'm going to have it go across just to see what that looks like. I could always cover it up. So I want that in line with the top of the green strip. This is the same paper here. I want to do that along the edge. Although I do know if I do it that thin and I put a frame on it, let's just take a look at the frame. There's a little edge to this one, so some of that's going to be covered up. So I might want to go for a thicker piece. And then put the Mod Podge on. And this is what I was thinking, right along that edge. sliding it to where I want it. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim that now. Take a look at what I have. And then, let's see, looking at these. Just seeing what they're going to cover and what they're going to, so I kind of like it there so I can see those little stripes in there. So I might do it like that. Just seeing how far I want to go. I'm going to put the Mod Podge on and then I'll slide it to where I want it. I wanted it up a little bit. These are fun to put back together. And oh boy, I did want to go over a little bit. That's okay. I'm going to do it like that. That's where it is. This piece will be a lot harder to slide the whole thing because it's cut up. So we'll do that. And I'll trim this. Taking a look at it. This piece, I don't know why, but I do love it. So I have white up in here, and I'm trying to see, this is, if I put the white there, we're going to have a whole bunch of white there. So trying to see if there's another place. I want to even overlap this. And of course, you know, the vase and the flowers are going to be covering things up, but I don't need to worry about that. Do I want to, oh, I really want to add this. I'll put it there. For this one, I'm going to put the Mod Podge directly on my canvas here. And that actually fits nice right there. Okay. So now I'm just going to take a peek. I'm going to move some pieces around a little bit more. I want to look at this. See if there's any other pieces from this that I'd like to add. Okay, so this is from the mandala. I cut a strip there and I want that down, so that's sticking and it pulled up a little bit. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to cut a little piece off here. It's starting to get pretty messy. Try to move some things around. Okay, so Mod Podge. I'm going to put this down here. Trim it. And then this, I was thinking here. The tops of these are there, but I could still. I'm going to put the Mod Podge directly here. Do that. And this one here, I think I already got Mod Podge there. So line those up kind of. And let me see what else I can come up with. Okay, so I'm going to place this down here. Actually, I might sneak that. I'm going to lift this up a little bit because I want to sneak this down. And then I'm going to find the medium-sized circles. So there's 3 medium. Gonna put some Mod Podge down. Actually, the way these are set up, I'm gonna change my thought there. So I'm gonna go medium, move these away. Looking for a large one and a small one. Okay. All right, so I'm looking at, I can add some doodles to that. This is starting to buckle, but I'm going to just leave that alone. At this point, I'm going to trim this edge here. Still just scanning it. I feel like there's something missing here. I'm going to have all these flowers up there. Okay, so I think this is what I'm looking for there. So these are from the mandala shapes. Trying to see what's, I think that's the only thing that's not glued on right now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So those fit nicely. See how, where I want it. Maybe like that. Okay, so at this point, I'm feeling like I'm going to have the flowers up there. Maybe I want something in the corner, but I'm going to deal with that later. What I want to do at this point is to apply a coat of Mod Podge to the entire surface. So everything that I just collaged down. And a layer on, I don't think I got a coat on the white paint, so we're going to seal that in as well. At this point, I'm going to let everything dry and then I'll be back. I'll tidy up everything and then I'll make some final decisions. All right, I'm back. One thing that I decided as I looked at this, I have 3 circles, 3 of these. That's a little too symmetric for me, so I pulled out the other mandala shapes there, and I'm going to glue those down. And this one is hanging off the edge. Sometimes it's nice to have things going off the edge. And I'm going to coat them with Mod Podge. So I'm already liking that better. I'm going to trim this. And I think at this point I'm ready to commit to where I want the vase. And I'm thinking there or there. So grab my chipboard there, put Mod Podge on. Slide this around to where I want it. So maybe there. And then I'm going to grab my flowers. I think what I'll do is organize them in terms of the color so that I can spread them out. Feel like I'm missing one, but that's okay. There it is. Okay. So I am going to first lay some down and then glue. I might have them kind of flowing out. All right, I'm going to put this layer down. And now I'm going to continue to layer the flowers. Okay, so I decided to do all of the flowers and have them kind of flowing out like that. I'm not sure if it makes sense, but it does not need to. I just had the idea and I wanted to try it. I can do as many of these collages as I want, so I think just exploring is probably the best way to go about it. Not overthinking, trying not to overthink. I mean, I might add more coming down like this. I want to coat the vase that I just put on. There will be some other touches that I'm going to add to this. So why don't we let this dry and then come back. All right, it's not completely dry, and this idea of having the flowers flowing out, I like the thought, but not necessarily how I did it. So that's something I'm going to explore more in some other collages where they can, maybe if I had more room up top, I'd do more and then have them flowing. For this collage, I figured out my solution, and that will be to add another vase. And that's it. So just putting that there solves that. So now I have the whole cluster of flowers. So I'm going to do that. And then the other thing I didn't like was this wide open space. So that kind of solves that problem as well. I wish I didn't cover the top of that vase. I could cut out another, or maybe take this. This one's too small, but I could do something or draw the lines, or maybe it looks fine the way it is. But I'm going to coat this as well, and we'll let that dry. All right, so I'm back to see if I want to add some final touches, and one of the things is I really like some of that texture I added in the background, which we lost, obviously, because of all of the layers. So what I want to do, I pulled out my white paint again and my brush, some caps, and I'm going to grab the bubble wrap as well. And I also grabbed some cardboard. So I think what I'm going to do is add some texture over the top. So taking my brush and thinning out the paint just a little bit. The other thing to play with, I haven't done this in a while, but getting some of that paint watered down and then tapping so I get some spots on there. The thing with this is it's kind of spraying all over my workspace. So I got to be careful, but just this is another way to add some interesting marks like that. This one is a little bit thicker than I'd like. I could try to wipe it off. I don't know if I'll ruin it if I do that, but here's a cotton swab. I always like to have those handy to wipe away things. So let's see if I can do a couple more without splattering this all over my space here. Okay, so that's good. And then I'm gonna spread this around so I can, well, I don't even have to do that. I was gonna say to dip these in, but I'll paint. And then I can add on top. And then the cardboard, painting that and seeing if there's any texture I want to add. Maybe some on the vase. So just experimenting, not being afraid to try something, because this is how I'm going to get ideas. I don't know where all of this is going to be leading me this year, how my style will change, what ideas I'll come up with. I'm not going to come up with any if I don't try some things out. So just experimenting. And then do I want to add some bubble wrap? And sure, I'll try that. And just a couple spots. I'm going to push some of the stuff back into the background. And then, as I showed you earlier, as long as that's wet, if I don't want this on the vases, I could go take a paper towel, take my cotton swab, and wipe some of that off. All right, so let's call that a day. I'm really enjoying this, but I'm really enjoying coming back to it again and looking for other things. I can take my acrylic markers, add some marks to different areas, but why don't I let it sit, and I will, like I said, I'll come back and see if there's anything else I want to add. But let's see what it looks like in a frame. So that's looking beautiful. I do feel like I would wash off some of the paint so this comes forward again. So let's just do that now, because that was going too much in the background with all that white paint. So I'm going to pull it off the vases. So those can come forward again and stand out a little bit more. And I'm liking that just as it is now. So let's put that frame back on and call it a day. Thank you so much for joining me today.